Mr. President, I come to the floor today to talk about one of the greatest threats facing our country today, Islamic extremism. 24 years ago, September 11, 2001, nearly 3,000 innocent Americans were murdered in a coordinated terrorist attack carried out by radical Islamic extremism. Those of us who lived through that day remember exactly where we were when those planes hit the buildings. That day changed this country forever. We were smacked in the face with the reality that there are people who are so hell-bent on destroying America that they will kill themselves just to try to harm us. That's reality. It sends shivers down your spine, but it's true. And it happened. In the aftermath of 9/11, we created the Department of Homeland Security. Basically, we went to war. We spent the following 2 decades unsuccessfully attempting to westernize the Middle Eastern countries most responsible for this attack. We strengthened surveillance and gave up personal freedoms in the hopes of preventing another large-scale attack. But 20 years later, we have to ask, have we made any progress at all in rooting the evil of radical Islam out of this country? Have we done it? Let's be honest. Radical Islamic terrorism didn't go away after 2001. In 2009, 13 people were killed in a mass shooting at Fort Hood by an Army psychiatrist who was radicalized by Islamic teachings. In 2013, 3 were killed and hundreds injured when 2 brothers detonated bombs at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. They were inspired by their radical Islamic beliefs. Then in 2015, an ISIS-inspired couple killed 14 people and injured 22 at a party in Southern California. In 2016, Omar Muteen killed 49 people and injured 53 more at a nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Muteen pledged allegiance to ISIS during this attack. It continued in 2019 when a Saudi military trainee opened fire at the Pensacola Naval Air Station, killing 3 Americans, including 1 young man from my home state of Alabama. Earlier this year in Louisiana, a deranged person drove a truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing 14 people. To no one's surprise, he said he was inspired by the Islamic State. These attacks, they weren't just against people, they were an all-out assault on Western culture, freedom, and the values that we hold dear to our heart. But it doesn't stop there. Thanks to Joe Biden, thousands of people on the suspected terror watch list were allowed to enter this country over the past 4 years. Islamic extremism and Sharia law openly call for the destruction of America and Western culture. Let's be clear about this. The thousands of terrorists we have allowed to enter our country have brought their anti-American rhetoric and ideology with them. We're seeing this in cities like Minneapolis, Dearborn, Portland, Chicago, and even New York City. The leading candidate for mayor in New York City is a far-left socialist who sympathizes with extremist groups like Hamas. But this insanity, sadly, isn't limited to New York. We have elected members of Congress who openly support the radical Islamic terrorist organization Hamas. Just yesterday, we paused to remember the more than 1,200 innocent people, including 40 Americans who were slaughtered by Hamas terrorists in Israel on October the 7th, 2023. Hamas literally means Islamic Resistance Movement. It's been 2 years, and 2 U.S. Congresswomen, Omar and Tlaib, they still refuse to condemn these heinous crimes in Israel. These 2 members were elected to represent American citizens, and they are sympathizing with Islamic terrorists instead. It's almost hard to believe, but it's true, and they don't hide it. You know, we're allowing people with extremist ideologies, people who hate America values, to not only live here, but to hold positions of power and influence our government. It's un-American, and it's an insult to the millions of Americans who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its freedom. You know, if you think this poisonous ideology won't affect your way of life, just look at Europe. The United Kingdom, once a proud nation that helped save the world from Nazi tyranny, has essentially lost its identity. It's gone. Mass migration has destroyed their society. There is no freedom of speech. Crime is through the roof, and openly anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas riots have become a regular occurrence. And this is in Europe. This is in the UK. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer recently appointed a person with extreme pro-Palestinian views as Home Secretary. In the UK, the Home Secretary is in charge of protecting national security, ensuring law and order, and overseeing immigration. What a surprise. So the person who is in charge of immigration and national security for the UK is openly a pro-terrorist. If we aren't careful, the United States will look like Europe in 10 years or less. It's coming. We can't bury our heads in the sand about this any longer. The Quran openly calls for violence against non-Muslims, openly. Radical Islamists take these instructions literally and to use them to justify terror. It's not politically correct to say this, but it's the damn truth. Something you won't hear from the deranged leftists who run cover for Islamic extremism is about the inhumane and disgusting ways that they treat women. In Muslim countries that follow Sharia law, it is considered normal for women to be raped, trafficked, and forced to marry as young as age of 6. Pedophilia is rampant, and women are lucky if they are allowed to drive. I'm old enough to remember when Democrats championed the Me Too movement, which was self-described as a global survival-led movement to end sexual violence. But these same Democrats who championed the Me Too movement have been radio silent when it comes to the way women are regularly treated in countries that practice radical Islam. I have yet to hear my Democrat colleagues who are siding with Hamas talk about the brutal ways Hamas has abused the women they have held hostage since October the 7th. Nor have I heard Democrats who claim to be feminists talk about the fact that some Muslims, countries that practice Sharia law, require women to be completely covered from head to toe. These women, they're not allowed to get an education, work a job, or in some cases even leave home. They are barred from gyms, parks, and beauty salons. They are forbidden from traveling without a male relative and are forced to wear certain clothing that covers everything but its eyes. But meanwhile, the men in these countries are allowed to abuse women, have sex with children, or have multiple wives, no problem. Everyone, but especially feminist groups, should be outraged about this horrible abuse of women. But that doesn't fit the left's narrative. So you won't hear a peep from liberal so-called feminists about the disgusting treatment of women in radical Islamic countries. You also won't hear from Democrats about how radical Islamic terrorists are currently carrying out a mass genocide of Christians in Nigeria. Think about this. More than 62,000 Christians have been slaughtered since 2000 by radical Islamic terrorists in Nigeria. You heard that right, 62,000. And just this year alone, more than 7,000 Nigerian Christians have been murdered because of their faith alone. You can't turn on the TV without hearing about Israel's so-called mass genocide of Palestinians every day. And yet when it comes to 62,000 Christians being slaughtered by radical Muslims, it's radio silence. This extreme ideology is straight from the pit of hell, and it has no place in American society. We are blessed that freedom of worship is a constitutional guaranteed right in this country. That's what our forefathers fought for. If you want to come here legally, practice a peaceful version of Islam, and blend into our society by adopting the treasured American values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you are welcome to do so. But if you believe that Sharia law supersedes American law, you should be deported immediately. If we don't take a stand now, our way of life, our Christian values, our freedoms, and our national identity will disappear. There is only room for one law in this country, and that's the Constitution of the United States of America. Sharia law is an anti-American and has no place in a free society. Texas is already taking action to ban Sharia law, and I commend them. Other states should follow. We must protect American values, not apologize for them. I truly believe we are at a crossroads in this country. For too long, people have tiptoed around this issue, afraid to hurt somebody's feelings or make people uncomfortable. But the time for being politically correct is over. The truth is that radical Islamic extremists want every single freedom-loving American dead. Bottom line. They have proven over and over again that they are willing to do whatever it takes to kill just one American citizen, whatever it takes. And it just isn't happening overseas. It has been allowed to fester and is alive and well in our very own country, just waiting for the right opportunity to attack. It's coming. Just yesterday, thousands of extremists gathered in New York to champion radical Islam. It's scary. So the question is, will we continue down this path and end up like Europe? Or will we honor the sacrifices made by the millions of Americans who have given their lives for our freedoms by standing up against people like the radical Islam? Now's the time to act, because if we don't, we will lose this country as we know it. It will be gone. This isn't about a Republican or Democrat issue. It's an American issue. I hope my Democrat colleagues will join me in sending a loud, clear message that we will not tolerate Sharia law in this country. Not now, not ever. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.